we want to welcome everybody here.
Everything all at once?
Everything all at once.
It's honestly a sensation.
Aliens listen to it.
All part of the human experience.
Great.
In a parallel universe, we had a different conversation than we're about to have right now. I believe in those kind of things.
We've already done this.
What?
Deja vu.
Weird. I can't imagine another time where you've been in our basement, Matt.
This is really strange.
Or in our studio. It's not a basement. It's Everything at Once Studios.
Studio.
I've never
Big time.
I've never met you before in person, but just looking at you, I get the vibes that you grew up Pentecostal.
Wow, he gives off those vibes to you.
Yeah, is this true?
Just look at a man and identify his religion.
It's funny. It is true.
It's a skill.
I'm still perfect with that.
When I was getting ready to play with my friend in the two-piece rock thing called Boot Jack, I was like, "You never played with me before, have you?" And he's like, "No." He grew up Catholic, and I'm like, "Well, brother, it's the power of the Holy Ghost."
That's right.
And he's like,
Duh, right? Oh man, and I feel like that spirit, as much as like I might not agree with a lot of Christianity and stuff, I do believe in like the Holy Ghost and that power of all of us connecting together and the being guided by some greater force out there.
I mean, when it comes down to like that energy, I don't see any difference between like, that really fire, brimstone, dancing around, speaking in tongues, and voodoo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really all about this sort of like emotional shared space with the intent of feeling something.
Right.
And when you do that, it's like those what do they call them? The whirling dervishes, the Islamic mystics that do these spinning dances, and they'll shove like swords through their cheeks and they won't bleed, and they just do all this crazy stuff. But it's no different than voodoo ceremony. It's no different than Pentecostals jumping all over the place or falling over, or picking up snakes, or it's all the same.
It's all the same. You know what's interesting? Fun fact. I don't know if they teach it in different sects of Christianity, but
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're going. We're live.
We're recording.
We're recording. We're making it count this time.
All right, making it count. This was the only time. Okay. No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we never did this before, right? Remember?
No. But it's interesting because at least like growing up Catholic, they teach you can take the Father or the Son's name in vain and be forgiven, but you cannot take the Holy Spirit in vain. That's like an instant ticket to hell.
Yeah, blaspheming the Holy Spirit.
Exactly. It's the worst thing you can possibly do.
Right. Which feels like a really messed up sort of like thing.
Yeah?
In a lot of ways. Because it's like, so I can be forgiven. I could open up fire right now.
Sure.
And kill you both, and I could be forgiven. But
as long as you repent,
or as long as I'm not blaspheming the Holy Ghost, why do it?
Thank you.
And you know what? It's very ingrained because pardon the French here, but you've heard people say, God damn it. It's like, you've heard people say like, Jesus Christ, but you don't hear people going around going, oh, Holy Spirit.
Nobody does.
Not really.
But I feel like that power that you're referring to when you talk about the people sticking swords through their mouths and doing other incredible feats, surviving venomous snake bites, is so, I don't know, it's such a strong and interesting thing. If you ever have like an experience like that, like I go to a lot of Native American practices and sweat lodges and stuff, and I've seen like elders just grab like red hot burning stones and like push them or touch them, or like it's crazy too, just to see people do things that are like extra human.
Right. If you look at those in those snake handling Pentecostal churches in the South or wherever they are, sometimes they will drink poison. Mm-hmm. They will hold like flames under their face. They won't get burned.
Right.
They do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and it's up to like, that's such an extreme level of faith to just be like, okay, I was bit by this venomous snake, or I'm doing whatever crazy feat here, and I am just hoping that God loves me enough to protect me,
heals you,
or heals me, or keeps me safe, or whatever it is. That's like just such a very devout thing to do. Like, I'm going to refuse medical attention, and I'm just going to leave this one up to God.
And people die.
Oh yeah.
Or disfigured. Gnarled up with like snake venom, whatever they call that when your muscles are like
atrophy
and all this stuff. Yeah, it's definitely a crazy scene. There's a book you should read called Salvation on Sand Mountain.
Oh, yeah?
It's about a reporter that went to report on a preacher that killed his wife putting her hand into the rattlesnakes, like out behind their house. And then, but when we went down to report on it, he actually got wrapped up into going to the church. It's a great book.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a good book. So it's a true story.
And you were raised Pentecostal, correct?
Pentecostal holiness, based, started in the South, started in North Carolina, and then just spread out. And I was mostly in Pennsylvania, little churches my dad pastored. And then we did make one giant move from Connellsville, Pennsylvania to Cordova, Alaska.
Oh, wow.
That is a big
I was
jump.
in 5th grade. And then we were there for a couple years. I moved back at the beginning of 8th grade.
So mostly like outskirts of cities, or?
Yeah, rural. I mean, I was in the first church my dad went to was out in Snyder County, Pennsylvania, in the mountains, called Beaver Springs, Pennsylvania. And then we were in Shirleysburg, Pennsylvania.
I didn't even know that was a place. Is it?
We're good.
Okay.
All right.
I'm nervous now.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
All this talk about the Holy Spirit is working is keeping us safe.
It's keeping us going.
Keeping us going.
We're
here.
not blaspheming anything.
We're not blaspheming.
Yeah.
So do you think? So the goal is to like take like the sword. I don't want to call it a trick, but take like the sword thing or the serpent thing or drinking the poison, but using your words and guitar.
Yeah, I mean, I think I write with a lot of that early gospel, folky, sort of mountain music influence, that energy. I mean, when you play solo, depends what you want to do. If you're gonna play solo in a bar or in a crowded situation, you got to have something that gets attention. So I draw on my early experiences, like that Pentecostal music that I grew up with. I'll Fly Away, or there's a ton of them. I can't even, When We All Get to Heaven, or these upbeat songs. I mean, literally in the churches I grew up in, sometimes everybody would be singing this, like, When We All Get to Heaven, what a day of rejoicing that would be, and everybody starts clapping, and they're clapping. There's times when people would start marching around the church, and, like, waving hankies and, like,
just feeling
speaking in tongues, and, like, preachers up there just, like, going back and like just hopping on one foot, like going just all over the place.
There's so many memes out there of like I believe they're Pentecostal churches, and they're like some other song in the background.
Right.
And they're just like, like running around, jumping, stomping, and people are like falling over.
Right.
Doing the running man.
There was a time I remember going to this little church. I think it was like Reimersburg. Literally, okay, this is like in the 80s. There was a little church in the middle of nowhere, and if you had to go to the bathroom, you went out to the outhouse. There was no plumbing in the church.
Okay.
Creepy. It was in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and you have to go outside, and like there's a light like over the front door of the outhouse, and like there's bugs everywhere, and you're just like, it's night, dark out. It's so weird. Anyway, I remember this little old lady. They're marching around, and like they're really getting fired up about going to heaven and all this stuff. She, in this church, a lot of women didn't cut their hair, so they had these buns. And she started speaking in tongues and whipping her head. And I remember just this big ponytail coming loose, just like a helicopter. But she was feeling it, And but that's the kind of energy that I want to have when I'm playing, and I want people to respond to. I want to bring people into the story and the shared experience, and then we'll all go on this trip together,
Right. Bring them in and get them involved and active in the show, participating.
And with each other. I've always said in my little mission statement that I do music, I want people to feel connected. That's it. Yeah.
And you mentioned that like sometimes that can be discouraging if you're not getting that kind of response.
Yeah, it's hard when you're trying to connect, but you're in a bar that's like super noisy. The people even literally have their back to you. Yeah.
Engrossed in other stuff. Like, hey, I'm here.
Right.
Singing for you guys.
But then, sometimes though, and I think every songwriter has these moments where you are reaching, like, you'll see like 4 people, responding. And that's always good, But I do think that when I'm able to get in front of groups of people that are there to listen, I do connect, and it feels really good. Like, after I opened up for Tyler Smilo and the Ghost when they did that Packer recording, and there was like 2 or 3 people came up and said that like I moved some of my songs, my originals, like moved them to tears, and I was like, man, I need to play for people like more. That's one of the reasons why I'm picking it back up again. Not only just to pay for the car I had to get, but these people that come up and share like they had a moment, it makes me want to like do it more.
Right.
So, yeah.
Are you selective with where you want to play your gigs then? Like some bars are definitely more or some musical spaces are definitely more conducive to active listening.
Well, when you want the money, you kind of play anywhere.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's true.
And when you want like the best gigs, in my opinion, are like the 45-minute to an hour set. Because you can pack all of what you really want to say without any filler. You just go up there and you do it, and you feel great, and you move on. But when you have to like, sort of like slog along like 3 hours, like 45-minute, 15-minute break,
Playing some
45
songs
minutes,
you might not feel quite so much.
and it's just you're just trying to make it through to 9 and get your check, and like, it's just hard. So I am not very selective.
Would like to be though.
It would be great if I could like fall into places that just were there to like hear the song and like be moved. But if you look at YouTube, whether it's comedy or any of these things, people are so generally rude and entitled and like there for another reason. And so many people just want to be part of the show too. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Not everybody can just be part of the show. What I mean is like the showman. They want to say something or
Like yell at you.
Yeah.
Play Freebird.
Or not or they don't pay attention at all. It's like the good attention. I don't know. So good attention's good. Bad attention, no attention might be worse than even bad attention. I don't know.
There's a Chuck Palahniuk quote that always spoke to me. He's one of my favorite writers. Studio's falling apart. But he talks about in I think Fight Club about how being voiceless is worse than not being heard, or having a voice and not being heard.
Right. Yeah, I feel like there's a story to be told, and I'm happy that I've written some of those stories, but I got more to tell. In Grove City is where I came from before I moved here, Grove City, PA, and I learned how to play guitar in church. I was singing in church before I played guitar. I would go around and sing to cassette tapes. So like sometimes I did my own sound. I would go to other churches and like sing,
right,
and like do a whole evening of performances with cassette tapes. And there was times where I would have to be the one that controlled it. I'd put a cassette in, push play,
just the volume,
and wait for the music to start, and I would sing some song, and then the next song I'd pop the cassette out and like do it myself. I don't know why I didn't dub them all in order.
I mean, when we're kids and we're trying to figure stuff out, like that's you just a lot of times you just don't have that experience.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure if you look back at it now, you'd be like, oh well, I hook up a sound pad and I hit
That's true.
one button and it does my thing for me.
That's true. Fortunately, there's no videos of me doing like any kind of like Christian rap. There's not.
Have you ever done that though?
No. I mean, in like on like for fun, yes. Not in church. That would have been some DC talk.
Yeah,
I would have did some of that. Yeah.
No, see, but Christian rap is like, I mean, that's the ticket, man.
You remember DC Talk? Do you know?
No.
My God is doing a brand new thing. Since time began, he remains the same, faithful as...
Well, it just makes me think of, like, that kind of stuff makes me think of the one South Park where Cartman starts a Christian rock band, and they're awful and horrible, and he's singing and stuff, but it doesn't matter because they're Christian, so everybody loves them and buys their records.
It's true.
I think of that one video, which, can't say the name on here, but it's like Jesus Christ is my, N-word or whatever. You ever see that thing, where they're rapping on that, and I see that and I'm just like, good Lord. Like,
it's the old lady?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's terrible. But now we got you on video rapping a little bit Christian style.
Oh, yeah. You were just saying, thank God there isn't any, but now it exists.
Oh, no.
We goaded you into it.
Oh, no.
So
I'm actually here to announce my new career in Christian rap.
Congratulations. It's going to be great. We're all looking forward to it.
Heavenly.
Inspired by who's your favorite rapper? Who's your
I don't know. I don't even know a rapper right now.
Do you listen to like any hip hop?
I do. I mean, like, I do. I'm trying to think. Like, I have a Blueprint CD.
Oh, there you go, Jay-Z.
Jay-Z's dope.
Yeah. Black Album. I have that on vinyl. I mean, geez, I grew up in the '80s, so like Fresh Prince,
Right. NWA.
Fat Boys.
What about
Snoop Dogg?
Beastie Boys?
Some Snoop Dogg. Beastie Boys. Yeah, you got to fight for your right to party.
That's right. We were just talking about that before this show, before you got here.
Yeah. I mean, I want to do a collaboration with C Brown.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I want to get him on the show at some point. We just had Johnny Evans from the Lower East Side.
I saw that. That was great.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah. He's so good.
He definitely is.
Oh yeah.
He's a very supportive person of all the music too.
He really is. Yeah.
Yeah, he really couldn't say how much he wants to let other people perform and, like you were talking about, leave their impact on people and express that people, or allow people to find that common connection through music that like kind of unites everybody. Everybody share those same experiences.
I would like to work with somebody that does hip hop and like mix that folky country with it. Not like something super cheesy. Hopefully,
That's the thing right now, though.
Yeah, maybe. All modern country's hip hop.
Yeah.
Steve Earle said it's hip hop for white people that don't like black people. That's what Steve Earle said about modern country music.
Yeah, I mean, like there's like Jelly Roll out there. He's like a bunch of people.
Do you remember
his country songs now? Country rap.
Do you remember
hip hop? That's what it's called.
You remember Bubba Sparks from when we were in high school?
Bubba Sparks.
Yeah, he was like the OG of it, or like Nappy Roots.
Oh yeah, Nappy Roots is great.
Yeah, they're awesome, but they're kind of like a mix of like, the folky like country with rap.
They do have like that cool like southern folk sort of approach to rap.
I hear a lot of like blues influence too in some of the rappers that I like the Roots.
Oh yeah.
All that old bluesy,
I love cool
anti-establishment type feelings that people have that are like upset with the status quo and the way things are going right now in their lives or in the world around them.
Yeah, I'm influenced by a lot of different things, but mostly that original like roots music. What was I listening to? I listen to a lot of gospel music still. I still do that. I just like it. I like the rhythms.
You still a spiritual person?
No.
I feel it. Lost touch.
Yeah, I mean, like when you start letting go of some of the things that really held you into that mindset, it's like there's no point. I still respect it. The way I grew up was very old school. It's basically not going to be around forever. So like from like a anthropological, history, I feel privileged that I grew up around it.
Yeah.
It's on the way out. I mean,
it's a rare experience.
Yeah, it's the old traditional like 1800s, keeping it as close as possible to that early revival sort of spirit. It's not around like it was. It's also commercial now. And these people were just doing what they knew to do, or felt they needed to do. It wasn't. You didn't buy to any programs. We didn't have. I mean, I don't even think we had like, what are those things called that you put the light on? Like you put the clear plastic and it would project words onto the wall. Like a
slideshow or something like that?
We didn't even do that. Like it was always old hymnals or maybe like a printed book with like modern hymns in it, which were like made in the 60s or something. So yeah.
Do you think that I mean, I'd assume it probably did like push you in the direction of folk. That's like the most folky thing, is just drawing from your predecessors, your ancestors.
Well, I think one of the things that I'm realizing, and I'm not trying to like say I'm like OG or some weird like superiority, but like a lot of people now are producing folk music or even Americana music, but they don't have any real connection to that, or they don't value traditional songs. They don't play traditional songs either. They just don't even know it, but yet they're creating something all based on it.
Right.
So my shows I do live, when I do covers, and a lot of them are really old covers, old bluegrass, old gospel, old blues. And there's no harm. I mean, I think that's what keeps tradition alive. That's what keeps you rooted in the tradition. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to stay in touch with those types of things. Yeah, studio's falling apart a little bit. I got found a better way to stick up those sound reduction foam panels up there.
I mean, I think maybe that's the time. Maybe that's like the countdown to when the show ends. Like as one.
It might be. Yeah, once they're all
true.
gone, that might be how we have to work things
See you
out.
later,
tonight.
everybody.
Yeah, we're just whoever the guest is when the last one falls, we just get up and leave.
7 days later.
So when did you realize you like had something with music?
It was like first off singing in church, but then in high school when I tried out for a solo from the Les Mis musical, and all the guys were lined up and everybody's kind of chit-chatting in the again, nobody's paying attention. And I'm trying out, and first couple guys go. I get up and I start into the solo, and it was like on this page, I write my last confession. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but anyway, I got done with that whole thing, and it got quiet while I was singing, and all the girls screamed when I was done. I was like, all right.
We're gonna lose.
We
all
don't
of
have.
these
You might be the last guest on this show.
So that was it. I was like, well, people responded in a way that I never had before. So I was like, let's keep doing this. So started playing guitar, writing, produced. We started putting together our own coffee shops, created bands, started renting places to play in Grove City. It's a dry town back then. So, that's when it all started. And I never really stopped all the way through my, marriage and kids. I never stopped playing. I've been doing it. So,
were you ever trying to record anything back then?
oh, there's some recordings. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I
On
did.
like cassette tapes?
I did put out a couple of like homemade cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Or burned CDs, basically.
For sure.
Yeah, but I'm a graphic artist, so I really enjoyed doing really terrible designs back then. But that's what I did. Yeah.
Do you think you would have stuck with music if those girls didn't scream after you sang at choir?
Wow, that's a good question. I never would have thought if I didn't get that kind of response. It's really hard to think that I wouldn't have. But maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I would have joined the military to be a chaplain or something. I don't know.
I'm sure that probably opened up a lot of doors for you once your vocal talent was a little bit more well known.
Yeah, well, you kind of feel a little bit like I wasn't in band. I had a lot of friends that were in band, so I didn't play anything. I didn't have like a community. A lot of my friends were in theater. I didn't do theater, but I'd hang out with them. I'd go to the parties, but I wasn't in theater. So once I started singing and I was able to kind of fall into that, that was cool. Yeah, that was cool.
Nice. And what kind of music were you making back then?
Back then, it was probably more poppy folk, I mean, back then, at a certain point, I probably was listening to like Dashboard Confessional.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Or some early Christian, like Tooth and Nail Records, Solid State Records. They were like doing more. I got into a guy named Damian Giraldo, who was on Sub Pop. It was also like a Christian, Pedro the Lion. So like emo-ish, like 90s folk rock. And then I started a band that was more like a jam band. And then I always did solo though too. And then really after Oh Brother Where Art Thou, I realized that I should really draw on the original, like traditional stuff that I grew up with. So, yeah.
And now you're doing solo stuff. You play guitar and harmonica, right?
Guitar, harmonica, vocals. Yep. And sometimes I do electric guitar as a duo with Boot Jack, a drummer, and me, Eric Mildner on drums. And I was in a three-piece, like bluegrassy, I don't want to say bluegrass, it's not strictly bluegrass, it's just like a folk band or country band called Bootleggers Bible Club. That was really fun, I got to play Blues and Jazz Fest with that. Played all over the place, like casino and stuff like that. It was fun. Got paid good. It was fun.
What do you think that separates a bluegrass from a country song?
Bluegrass is a structure. And when it comes down to understanding bluegrass, it's just structured differently than country. I mean, years ago, before Bill Monroe and before that kind of driving mandolin with like the snare sound,
Sure.
chuck, chuck, it was just all like mountain music or folk music. But that driving mandolin, guitar, upright bass, maybe fiddle,
Banjo.
with that Earl Scruggs rolls. That driving, that's bluegrass. If you deviate from that drive or the specific kind of harmonies that they have, it really starts to get into country or something else, folk. So it's really generically, as like when I'm talking, I'll say bluegrass, but really in my heart, I feel bad when I say it because I know real bluegrass people and they're like, that's not bluegrass. So I prefer really just to say Americana or roots music.
Sure.
That way, if I can be a little bluegrassy, I can. If, whatever.
What do you think about pop country?
Not a fan.
I mean, neither.
I mean, I will say, it's hard to say. As far as like story songs go and more like traditional love songs in quotation marks, I think production value is terrible. But I do think a lot of the songwriting is still in country music, some of it.
Yeah.
But I would even argue top 40 is one thing, but when you start looking at modern people like Sturgill Simpson,
Luke Combs,
Old Crow.
No.
Old Crow Medicine Show. I don't know if I like Luke Combs. I don't even know if
Oh man, I feel like he has like the voice that I want to hear God talk to me in.
Man. Luke Combs. No, I'm not sure. Coulter Wall's a guy.
Steel Driver.
Jason Isbell. I think I've heard them before.
They're another one that could be the voice of God talking to me
I don't
whenever
know.
he does.
I don't know if God doesn't sound like Garth Brooks, send me to hell. You know what I'm saying?
A dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows. I was around when he first came around. That's nuts.
Absolutely. And so, what are you getting into now? Do you have anything new coming up? Any new inspirations that you're pulling from?
Well, I do have a few newer songs, and I want to write more. I have a lot of themes in my mind and like notes all over the place, but I do have some gigs coming up. I want to write more. I want to record. I've never recorded an album and actually did like all the like instrumentation. It's always been more like a demo. So I would love to do that at some point.
Cool.
Record a real album with pedal steel and drums and bass and whatever other instruments and background vocalists and stuff.
What kind of sound are you going for? What are the themes you're talking about?
Well, I went through a divorce, so thinking about relationships ending, thinking about sort of my deconversion.
Yeah.
I want to get real about that stuff.
There's a certain word that people use for that too, like their step away from like especially strict religious sex.
Is it like a shedding almost?
I don't remember. What's her name? The Carolina talked about it when she came on.
Yeah,
she wrote a book called The Unwanted Prophet. She's a local Erie author, and she had a cool word cause she was raised in a very religious household as well. And I can't think of it right now, so I guess it doesn't matter that much.
Well, I'm finding in Erie and in general a lot of people that had grown up with in sort of like stricter religious beliefs or with family that still believes, and they're kind of like working their way away from it. And it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very, very difficult because you're giving up, like for instance, my whole family's in it. My grandfather was a deacon. They built churches. Like my grandma like would crochet things to sell for missions, and they're all caring people, and they're all great people. So when you leave, you just feel like you're losing like a lot, I don't know. So then you have to reconnect with something. You have to connect to some other truth or reality, and that's kind of what I'm learning. So I want to write about that. I want to sing about that. I want to bring people into that, and the shared experience of so I went through an issue at the beginning of COVID, and it was so emotional. It was a family member that was sick, and I was afraid I was going to lose them. And that was the first time since I gave up my faith that I didn't pray. I couldn't, because I knew for me, I just don't feel like, I don't think it's not there. So, but it's it was the first time I really cried in the shower. It was so hard. And I was like, why? I was like, what am I? But what I felt and what it turned into was I didn't know what to do. I didn't how do I not cry out to a God or something? But what I did was I tapped into a shared experience of just pain. And I found solace in that. I'm not the only one suffering in this world.
Right.
You know, and people have suffered before me, and people are going to suffer right now, and people are going to suffer later. But like, you can tap into that, and then you start realizing that people make it, and some people don't.
Sure.
But you realize you're in this flow of experience, you know. And so I don't know, something clicked in me. I cried, and I kind of just tapped into that shared cry, like that shared cry. But it's further than that. I think there's a shared joy, there's a shared desire to create, there's a shared desire to exist, you know, to love, to whatever, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. There's so much more to this human experience, and I think that giving into those experiences in a lot of ways is one of the most human things you can do. One of the most real things you can do is to really feel that sadness, or feel that joy, or feel that sense of unity or connection or gratitude, or whatever it is that you're going through, and to really be there and to be present and to like take those emotions and sit with them for a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the things I think that we tend to do is kind of like, we look at our own sadness or our own experience and we think it's so unique. But we kind of package it up in this kind of like, I'm the only one.
Right.
You know, I'm the only one that my hurt is so special.
Yeah.
But it's shared, you know, and we're able to see that. I think that it just broadens our like way that we handle it. You know, it's all of us are suffering.
You know, we were in very similar boats at the start of, well, maybe not, but start of COVID. I had just exited a long-term relationship with somebody that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And at that time, I was very isolated because of COVID, and it felt like these feelings were going to be forever. You know, like this is, I was just going to be sad and miserable forever now after leaving this relationship, and that things would never be brighter, things would never be sunny again. And it was a very big turning point for me emotionally and mentally, like recognizing that this is not going to be permanent.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you're not alone in that experience.
Right.
I mean, there's a million songs written about it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You know,
And some of them kept me alive during that situation on repeat.
Right.
Crying on my couch alone.
Yeah, and I've found myself, like, I have a weird experience with life where, like, I'm the yin to people's yang, because not to be, like, I'm just being dead serious, like, well, beginning of COVID, all that stuff going on, I was just rocking and rolling. I was having a great time with life. You know, I graduated college, I got off of work for a while, I was making extra money, I was traveling around, and then it's just weird, like, everybody, like, there's a plane we all work on. And at different times, we can just connect with different people with like our vibrations, our happiness, our sadness. I think it's all just a way to like fill that void of helplessness that we have as individuals, whether it be like religion, empathy, music. But it's just an incredible thing to just tap into that humanity.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a key to, you know, when you think about all the issues that we're facing, having my boys, it's like, you have to be hopeful now.
Right.
Like, you don't have time to think it's all over, because they need something to look forward to.
Right.
So I'm very hopeful. One of my friends, I expressed online about my lack of belief anymore and the way I used to believe. And he reached out to me, and he was really awesome. He's like, he's a great friend. And he's like, I just don't believe you when you say you don't believe in anything anymore. And I said, well, you got to understand. I said, I might not believe in something, but it doesn't mean I'm not hopeful in people to do the right thing eventually. Like, if we default to some kind of like magic, it just makes it feel better like in the future. But I don't know. I'm more hopeful in humans doing the right thing eventually, and it might take a while, but we have to have hope, for all of our sakes.
Right.
That's what I want to do with my music, is bring people together and push us along. So, yeah.
You have a show coming up, right?
Yeah, I do. February 3rd, which is what? It's like real soon.
The Friday after this is going to be released.
Yeah. Oh, that's
or
cool.
Saturday.
Yeah. With Smilo and the Ghost at the Rook. I don't remember when the doors open, but it's like 8 or something. I don't know. But yeah, it should be a great show. I was really happy they asked me.
I'm looking forward to it. That venue's really cool. and
has a vibe for sure.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because most of the time when I see people there, it's not a folk concert.
Well, that's the unique part about this gig. I'm a little nervous. People come to see Smile on the Ghost, and there's an opener. Mm-hmm. Well, it's me. But Erie knows me, and if they don't, they will, if they're there.
And the people that are coming are I would think for the most part are fans of singer-songwriters, folk musicians, stuff like that. So, I would hope that your music would vibe with them just as well as Smile on the Ghost.
Well, that's a late night gig. I mean, it used to be later, back before COVID, but hopefully people will be there early enough to catch me and respond. I don't have anything to sell, but I'm on Bandcamp, whatever.
That's right. Check out his music on Bandcamp. Download an album, download a CD.
Yeah, Matt Texter.
It's good stuff. And I really enjoy the emotions and the feelings that I go through when I listen to your music and other folk musicians' music. It's very personal, and there's something special about the lack of just the personalness. You know what I mean? It's not you and a band or some other people or people that you're collaborating with or working together to make a certain sound or make a certain certain lyrics, certain songs, certain whatever. It's just you and the guitar.
Yeah, sonically it's just very simple, most of my recordings. Yeah, I don't know, do you remember anything you listened to specifically?
I don't know.
I just cycling through.
I was just going kind of clicking around, checking out a few different albums.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, I did. There was that album. One of my most recent ones would have been that Hank Says It Best.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the album that I listened to mostly.
And then I recorded that at my friend John Johnston's house before I went on tour back in 2017. And that's probably one of the last things I recorded. So it's been a while. I need to record something. So
get back into things. What was that? You said the hiatus was pretty good for you.
Yeah, pretty much. I was able to pull way back from my burnout and focus on other things. I ended a long-term relationship, actually a marriage. Bought a house in that time. Therapy. Yeah. Realigned my sort of views of my work that I do every day. I'm in a way better spot than I was, and I'm finally into that space. So hopefully that'll free me up to write some new stuff and get a new recording out.
Have you found therapy to be beneficial for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think, most of the time I think, therapy is good because it does teach you that you're not alone in the sense of, other people are feeling bad too, so it just helps you process. You can listen to yourself sometimes, because when you're talking to somebody, you're listening to yourself too.
Right.
Sometimes you're like, it's fine. Why am I saying?
Why am I saying?
Right.
Yeah, I sound really bad.
Sometimes I need people to reiterate to me what I'm already thinking in my head too.
That's true.
And sometimes when a therapist looks back and says, "You're okay,"
right?
Exactly. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah, what you're feeling is normal, So, or this is why you're feeling this way. Here's what we can do, and it's like, cool, let's do that.
Yeah, right.
Right. I feel like with my therapist, when I'm like, this is this horrible thing, she's like, that's pretty normal. And then when I'm just spitballing and say something that's just normal to me, she's like, stop.
wait a minute.
Wait, you've already said that 4 times during this session. Let's talk about that.
Let's unpack this a little bit.
Right.
See where this is really coming from.
Right. So you do figure out things about yourself, and you make connections with other things, and then you're able to move forward. So I turned 44 in November, and you're still learning about myself. And I think when people stop, that's not a good sign.
Right.
You got to work on stuff. You got to, if you're looking around and you're like, I'm not doing anything, I'm going to work, but it's just coasting. My relationship's kind of weird. I just don't, I don't know what's going on. You got to stop, and you got to learn to live again.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I feel like there's so many things that I've realized recently about me and the way I behave that go way, way, way back, to past experiences, whether they be traumatic or good or, somewhere in between. A lot of those behaviors and those mannerisms and the ways that I treat myself and treat others are just reflections of that. And being able to recognize those patterns and make changes where changes are necessary is so important.
Right. Well, learning like techniques like journaling, writing stuff down, I don't know, getting away from the TV and just, trying to do some other things. Right now I've been fantasizing about doing like a little zine.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
A magazine?
Yeah. Like, well, it's like a little,
like an Eerie Reader kind of thing?
No,
maybe?
just my own little weird book of like weird stuff.
Cool.
I don't know, make like 50 of them.
Whatever it takes to get creative again, right?
Yeah, I've really been hitting that, thinking about that. And then, recording, like I said. I dabbled with podcasts for a while, beginning of COVID. And then did a radio show for a little while during COVID for a community radio station in Cambridge Springs.
It's pretty cool.
Oh,
Yeah, that was fun. It was called Brother Matthew's All Saints and Sinners Chapel.
Ooh, that sounds very...
So it was like me doing a mix of gospel music and secular music. Mm-hmm. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
One of the only memories I have of really listening to like what I would consider gospel music was during and I remember it very vividly, and I don't know particularly why, but it was like a Southern Baptist gospel song. Everybody's like singing like, oh yeah. And it was great, and I'm like rolling around the city in the middle of the 100-inch blizzard on my way to work because I had to still work. I was working at a rehab at the time, and I had to be there. And I'm just like blowing through all these red lights and all these stop signs because I couldn't stop my car because I would have got stuck.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to just keep going, and I got my windows down and the heat on all the way, and I'm blasting gospel music and just having a really great time and feeling like freedom.
Oh yeah, I think all of those are still available online. Brother Matthew's All Saints and Sinners Chapel. I'll have to send you a link.
Yeah.
You might enjoy it.
Absolutely. I'm sure I would. What do you do to stay, what else have you been doing to stay creative and to keep those juices flowing?
Really, it's just like I said, I try to read more. I'm not great at reading like straight through stuff, but I do read lots of chunks of things. I watch lots of documentaries. Like I said, just, my ADHD brain, like, definitely jumps from like one extreme to the next. Like, I'm gonna do a magazine. I'm gonna record a song. I'm gonna do a podcast.
Right, yeah.
So like, I don't know. Maybe that's part of my creativity is just being creative in my own brain and not ever finishing anything.
Yeah, I get those hyper fixations too.
Yeah,
Scattered around. Hard to pay attention, but this is one thing that we have been paying attention to and actually remaining consistent so far. And I feel like that
impressive. Remaining
consistent and applying yourself to one particular thing, I'm finding more and more rewarding as I continue to get older, because I like most of the time I never finished anything, you know what I mean? I didn't finish college, I barely finished high school, I barely finished I never finished any like sports, you know what I mean? I was always somebody who like did it a couple days, quit. I tried to learn guitar, quit, skateboard, whatever. But the more I'm realizing like how beneficial it is to continue to apply myself in one direction, the further I get and the better I feel about it.
Right. I think for me, everything I'm going through now, like I want to hopefully be in a place when I'm like 50. Years, where I can get out of what I'm doing and just like hit the road and be the old folky that just hits the road.
Hell yeah.
People are like, where's this guy from? That's what I want to be. That's what I want to do.
You could be like the Woody Guthrie to the next generation.
I just want to roll into a town and people will be like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've been here all the time.
That's right.
You gotta get a sticker that, what is it? This machine kills fascists on your guitar.
Right.
I mean, that's got to be something you do when you turn 50 and
or
hit the road.
The machine killed this guy. That's really about me. Like,
right. That is like a huge withdrawal from like maybe not society, but like from the current status quo. You know what I mean? I fantasize a lot about like escapism, you know what I mean? Just like packing up my shit, selling my house, moving out into the forest.
It feels like it'd be good, but then also feels like it'd be hard.
Right.
I've written 2 songs. One song was about a retired hobo and he wants to hit the road again. The other one's about a retired freak show performer named the Fire Eating Magic Man from Japan.
Ooh.
And it's a song about, this guy like getting out of the freak show business and reminiscing about people chanting his name, kind of thing. So
I got one buddy named Porch, and he...
Porch?
Yeah. Porch. And I've been trying to get him to come on the show, but he's so hard to nail down. And he spent most of his life like backpacking and like hopping trains and just like being a hobo and traveling around the country. And he just got back from like South America. He was living in like Peru just like for almost a year, and then came back here, and I want to get him on the show. I'm going to call it the Porch Chronicles.
You definitely should.
Just to get like the real life experience of somebody that's like just, had that like such a high degree of freedom.
Well, you have to jump into it. I mean, I'm 44 years old, so like, you make these decisions, you get married and you have a house and kids and stuff. Anybody that's young that I've run into here that has like some ambition, you can't stay. Mm-hmm. If you grew up here, I mean, you really can't stay here.
I mean,
yeah, I think that's a
common belief for sure.
Like a misnomer.
But I like it here now.
Well, that's my point though. But like when you're young, like, the chance, I mean, the internet could make it easier to be seen.
Yeah.
It's not the same as it used to be. But I mean, honestly though, like, do you think that Bob Dylan would have the same status if he was a YouTube star instead of rolling into New York City and making up this story that he hopped the train to get there?
Yeah.
In this day and age, yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, because you can create your narrative from anywhere, and as long as you're interested enough in telling the story, you don't have to go to like New York or Hollywood to make it big.
I guess for me though, I think that the very medium of the clip medium, I don't know. I don't think you could. I don't know. I just find it hard to believe you would have the same staying power as somebody like Bob Dylan.
I think it'd be hard to have that like experience to be able to do what Bob Dylan did without a story like Bob Dylan.
Think about like modern country music. It leans so heavily into being from like rural areas, from being like from the sticks, from somewhere where you have to go down a dirt road. Like it's
blue jeans and beer.
Exactly.
Right.
But people eat that shit up.
Well, I think there's a difference though between creating culture and selling culture. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of like where I'm thinking, if you want to be a Nashville songwriter, then you should move to Nashville.
Right.
If you want to be a songwriter, there is a business in other places. It's harder to break into those scenes from a distance, without those collaborations and those connections.
I don't think it's as well, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's as impressive of a trek anymore to go from like Minnesota, where he was, to New York City.
That's true. Yeah, we get there a lot quicker now too.
And we get there visually. Like I can open my phone and in perfect HD, like look at like the city. I
just think that in this day and age, though, I think it's ruined. For instance, you run into somebody that has like a streaming channel, and they're very excited about, very passionate about it, and then you ask like, well, how many people tune in? Like, oh man, 5.
Yeah.
It's like big. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
No, I get you. And I understand the need for a lot of people to kind of break out of like Erie or the surrounding areas and go to a bigger city like New York or LA or Miami or wherever it is.
Youngstown. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't play the same 3 bars and be disappointed.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You have to play other places. Or you have to have a good presence online.
Right.
But you have to play other places.
I feel like it depends what you're doing in this city. Like if it's music or some kind of artistic expression, you're right. You probably have to break the bindings that are here.
Yeah.
But if you're running at other types of businesses or trying to grow yourself here in different capacities, you can absolutely make this your space.
Yeah, I think it depends what you're selling.
Yeah. It depends a lot on what you're doing. And I think that Erie is a great... Other people who have come on to have called it like an unfinished city. There's still a lot of room for people to grow and to, build their chops here, so to speak, or like, develop their stage presence or whatever in whatever capacity it is that they're getting into.
I think that a lot of the problem that I've seen in Erie in the 20 some years I've been here in the music scene and stuff is that a lot of the spaces, the actual physical real estate is owned by people that don't really have the vision. And the people that have the vision don't have the money or the resources to really pursue that. A lot of things I've seen come and go have been like built up beautiful places, very creative spaces, but when your landlord's a slumlord, and stuff's falling down around you, and then they try to get more rent out of you, you close it. You move on.
You'll have that experience anywhere, though.
Yeah, but I guess it's just where's that balance? Where the people with vision just don't have those resources.
Well, I think it depends on your demographic too. I mean, it's just a fact, unfortunately, at this point, that Erie is an economically depressed area, and I think a lot of people cling to memories. So when you're looking at artists that are creating new things, it might not resonate in a comfort zone where like a cover band does, because when things are tough, you want to grab onto things that make you nostalgic of like a better time. I think it just makes it difficult for people with like these forward thinking initiatives to get them through.
And I think that it is hard, especially like today, to generate revenue or capital in order to like open these spaces, and then to have it like not only be open, but like for it to stay open.
Oh yeah, it's extremely expensive. Like when, electric bills are so high, or just liability insurance if you're having a bar or something, trying to do the right thing.
Right.
But I've seen them come and go, like the Beer Mug, Crooked Eye, Bobby's Place, Forward Hall,
Scotty's,
The Hangout,
yeah, in Edinburgh.
Right.
There's so much liability and cost. But look, all these buildings are still there.
And there's a lot of new ones opening too still.
Yeah.
Like PACA, Philly on the Rocks, Basement Transmissions,
yep. I agree with
that. The Rook. And I guess where I'm coming from is that I just see this I'm trying to see, maybe it's not real, maybe it's in my head, a new resurgence of creativity and opportunity here locally.
And also, I think COVID and the lack of physical location, and really put a hiccup in the works.
Right. But that also leaves more opportunity to bounce back.
Yeah. Well, also, like, one of the things that's kind of annoying, though, is like, and I know there's like this fine line with like people working and like labor, but try to go do something sometimes in a cool spot at like 9.
Yeah. Nobody's there.
Nobody's there anymore. Like, I used to be able to roll into a place and think, I know somebody's going to be there. And it's like, there's nobody around anymore. Where's everybody? And then there's a business trying to operate in that, and they can't depend on anybody. It's hard.
Yeah.
Right. It's a combinatory effect of fear and inflation, and just a disconnect from us as human beings that COVID kind of created, where we all went into our spaces and stopped interacting, and a lot of people still haven't gotten out of that.
But you're definitely right on what you're saying about people like Bob Jensen and Marlene and those people, and Sean over at Philly on the Rocks, and all the spaces you said, PACA and stuff. So, and then it's cool that bands like Smilo and the Ghost are going out of town more. But when they come back, they have a packed house, which is great to be part of when I'm asked to be part of it. It's awesome. I mean, there are a lot of good things. I wasn't trying to
to hate on it.
No. But I think it could be better.
Oh yeah.
I think it could be better if we didn't have so many empty. I mean, I know they're working downtown on stuff, but it could be better if these places, if there was a way to connect space and resources with people with the vision, instead of people with the money and the resources speculating and just leaving things empty.
No, I agree. And oh my God,
there is just all kinds of stuff going on today.
The studio is falling apart today, apparently.
That was the.
I guess it's only meant for one show.
Did that light just turn on?
No, it
turned sideways.
It turned sideways.
That was some ghost stuff.
I know. I was like,
right. Things are falling down. Lights moving. I think that's like our sign to probably call it a night.
Yeah, maybe it is. But I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. Make sure you go check out Matt Texter at his show
in Bandcamp.
And on Bandcamp, check it, buy his album, support him, and we'll see you guys all at the Rook on the 3rd.
I'm on Facebook. If people like my page on Facebook, they can see my calendar. So
yeah, absolutely. Like his page on Facebook, like our page on Facebook too.
Yes.
And all our intergalactic, interplanetary fans, make sure you show up at that show and check out Matt Texter. He's the man.
And we'll be there. Come hang out and talk with us too. We love to hear from you guys, and we love to see everybody out living the life and supporting these local venues and these local artists that make Erie, a continuing, changing, diverse, dynamic area.
Hey, they're taking a chance and they're betting on you. Show up.
Woo!
Yeah.
We love you guys. Peace.
Peace.